But right now, I want to introduce a dear friend and colleague who I might not know if it hadn't been for this incredible technology and the people that it's brought into my life. Dr. Hoffman is a traditional naturopath. She's been practicing that for over 22 years. She sits on the medical professionals board for this company, which is a completely volunteer position. But I think between her background as a healthcare practitioner and her insights being on the medical board, she really is poised in a place where she can explain to us in layman's terms exactly what this is, why it is so profound, and why it is such a gift for humanity. So Carolyn, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Certainly, thanks so much, Lynn. Yours just such a great introduction about all the reasons why we need to think about this whole approach to our health. I'm kind of excited. Thank you so much for being here, especially on Valentine's Day, and that you're actually taking some of your evening time to be with us, but I hope it's going to feel valuable to you. I came into this and passed through it back in 2011, did not appreciate really the significance of the technology, even though I was actually working in the field of redox. But back then in 2010-11, that term had not actually been created in the medical science arena, and we'll talk about how they made that up. It passed by me again in 2017, and it was at that pivot point that I still wasn't particularly open, and I don't mean because I wasn't interested in what it was doing, but I wasn't really looking for another product at that point. I had a lot of other things, didn't really feel I needed yet another arena to work in. But it did some unique things that really caught my attention and made it very clear to me that it was doing something very different in a way that nothing else I had seen had done before. And in the 5 years, getting on for 6 years that I've been working with this, I truly do believe that the statement for me that this is the single most influential product technology that I've had the privilege to use over 20 odd years in natural health stands true, because it has, in the way that it caught my attention in the beginning, has continued to really show me that when we can work in these master molecules that are in every cell that exists in the human body, and that's 70 to 100 trillion of them, when we start to play in this phenomenal playground of every single cell and the master signals that turn on switches and turn off switches and basically create this enormous cascade of communication across the whole of our body, playing into everything that goes on for health or sickness. We are opening up frontiers that single supplements that might address a liver problem or a lung problem or a heart problem can't possibly do. And I think that that really is the testament to why I've really found myself in a position to see things take place that I've never been able to achieve before in helping clients. And so it's that piece that's really driven me into using this. And I want to share with you the importance of why that would be something that you would want to consider incorporating in your life as well. I'm going to share some slides with you, and I'm going to get rid of that one behind and make this larger. We'll go to the screen, and then you can just give me thumbs up if that looks good. Great. And so, as Lynn said, we're going to talk about redox. And as I delved into the redox biology books that really kind of made my mind scramble in terms of trying to struggle and get my brain around exactly what was this, because the things it's certainly not is nutrition. So if you're taking nutritional supplements, those are the materials that our cells need and are part of what the redox signals use to create this energy in the cell. But it's not a redox function. It's not homeopathy. I wondered if it crossed with that, but it's not homeopathy. It's not a CBD oil. It's not a juice. It's not specifically an antioxidant, although it does something much more important, which is to turn on our own internal antioxidant production, the most important ones that we can have. So it's none of those things. It's not a CBD oil. It's none of those things that we're familiar with that we would physically ingest and might be broken down in our gut in order to be used. That it is this missing link that I realized was the facilitator It is the catalyst, it's the labor, it's the thing that actually enables our body to do anything at all, and also to utilize the nutrition that we consume in our foods and in those supplements that we might add to our regime for health. And because it takes place in every cell, it is this missing link to how things function. Healthy cells themselves have a very specific electrical frequency. We are electrical. Think about it, right? If somebody has a heart attack and their heart stops working, what do? They put the paddles on and they shock us because they want to get this electrical processing working again, because that's the way that our body passes communication and information. But a healthy cell, as well as a brand new cell, and we have lots of those constantly being made throughout our lifetime, has a very different frequency from an older, a more exhausted cell or a sick cell. And this is where challenges happen. And so every single function of the human body, because this is involved in every cell, is tied up in what goes on with redox. But basically, we're going to produce energy. Now, we look here at those as apples aging there from the inside out, and that is oxidative stress. That's the thing that we all know in the human body to become inflammation. But those faces behind are exactly like those apples. We start off looking beautiful on the outside, and over time, things change on the inside. And as Lynn mentioned, we don't necessarily notice that until it becomes evident on the outside, in the same way that that apple started to decay on the inside and gradually it wrinkles on the outside. So sadly, I always say to people, remember that the wrinkles on the outside are a reflection of the wrinkles that are taking place on the inside, even if you can't feel it and even if you can't see it. It's happening, and this is the aging process in part in which redox is involved. So let me move on and say where. I mentioned that we're in every cell, and this is where the energy is made in these things called mitochondria. They're rather like the battery packs. In there we have hundreds and sometimes thousands of them, varies from cell to cell, but they take the food that we eat and they burn that oxygen and sugar together to produce the energy, right? Remember, just like the car engine, we need fuel and we need the spark to actually turn over the engine and go somewhere, right? And without that energy, the car's not going to move. And it's the same for us. Every cell needs energy to fuel whatever it is that we're wanting to do in our life, whether it's just simply thinking, whether it's breathing, whether it's swimming, whether it's working, whatever it is requires energy. And so if there's some points in your day where you feel like, I just don't have the energy to get through everything that's on my plate, or maybe, the day seems a lot longer than the energy that's available for it, know that this is because you're seeing changes deep down in the cell function. And we make these things called reductants and oxidants. This is the positive and negative charges. Science took the first couple of letters from reductant, or 3 letters from reductants and 2 letters from oxidants, pulled that together, and this has become this field of redox biology and medicine. It's replaced oxidative stress as being the thing that everybody thought was just the bad boy. And we'll talk about why it's actually not really a bad boy unless it's out of control, but it has a really essential function. So we have these signals, and these are the things that actually create the master molecules that pass on all the instructions for the cells to turn on and off and for us to be healthy. And here's that thing. This is the operating system of the human body. And it is this field of preventative medicine that's experiencing such an upsurge of interest. And as a result of it, we have, decades now of research into why these molecules are literally essential for us to be alive. It's fascinating to know that we can hold our breath maybe, 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 minutes if you're super clever and you've been trained to stay under the water for a long time. You can actually hold your breath longer and go without oxygen longer than you can redox signaling. If we don't have them, we die in about 3 seconds. That's how essential they are to our function. I mentioned that oxidation and oxidants are thought of as a bad deal. We know from science that they are literally like these signals, the smoke alarm in our house that sets off the alarm to say, Houston, we've got a problem. You know, in our home, it's probably a fire that's created the smoke. And this is alerting us to the fact that we have potentially damage, but certainly potentially life-threatening results if we don't put the fire out. Now, in the human body, it does the same thing. This is the oxidants in reductants and oxidants signals an alarm. It sends a little smoke signal up and the body recognizes that and says, okay, we've got a problem. We need to find that damaged cell and we need to solve the problem, right? The same way that we would go looking for the problem. This is the reductants. This is the fire and rescue brigade, right? They come in and they sort out the problems in whatever way. Part of it is actually turning down and switching off that inflammation so it doesn't damage too many cells, and maybe repairing whatever damage has taken place. But this is the healing, natural internal doctor that knows what to do, right? We are designed to heal, and think about that. We're not designed to promote sickness. We're designed to heal, and this is the mechanism that is inbuilt in every cell to do that. Now, we know an awful lot about redox itself, and it spurs from the 1998 Nobel Prize that was awarded for nitric oxide and its benefits in cardiovascular health. Nitric oxide is not actually a redox molecule, but it is a redox reaction. It comes as a result of redox reactions, but it's in that whole field that's got people super excited and interested in health science as to what else can we learn about these redox signaling functions. It's fascinating that actually I was working in this field back in 2010 before someone first talked to me about ASEA, and not even realizing that I was actually working in this whole beginnings of redox itself, testing levels of nitric oxide in our clients and actually rebuilding them. But that Nobel Prize has spurred the last 2 decades of research across the world. Here's some examples of universities in the United States that either are doing single research for projects, or maybe like the University of Nebraska, are so invested in this whole new field of health science that they have a complete department dedicated to redox studies. You'll see if you go to the NIH that we're over 350,000 published studies on all of the aspects that doctors are looking at. And if you go to Google Scholar, you'll find all the ones that don't make it into the NIH publications, over 3 million in some searches, depending upon what words you're putting in. We've got about 1,400 published books and journals, and Redox Matters is one of the ones from one of the members of our medical board itself. But it helps us connect the dots between all this research and science, which is looking at the disease mechanisms and how redox plays a part in health or disease, but not actually how to create something with this science that you and I can use. And we're going to talk about who has done that. And here we come to this intersection, this amazing moment in history where 10 years of research in the clinical field on these same redox signaling molecules that we're going to share with you this evening actually had resulted in a lot of knowledge about that. Verdis Norton, who was a retired VP of strategy for Kraft Foods, was doing consulting for economic direction and helping companies, move forward. And he passed through and was asked to sit on the board of this company that had been doing this research for about 10 years. They were actually running out of money. The long shot was that they ended up not being able to raise money for them. The product and the patents were sold to another company who ended up getting rid of those pieces of that company as they started to divest assets. Now, he had had the opportunity to experience some of those initial redox signaling molecules that were being made in little machines that would generate them in a liquid and you would consume them. But they had a lifespan that was very fleeting, about 10 to 30 minutes. But in experiencing the molecules himself, he knew that he felt different in his health. And he knew that they had something, even though they hadn't really nailed down all of the specifics about what they got. So he bought that technology, put together a new group of scientists, and lo and behold, they did what the science community said was totally impossible. They found a way to stabilize these bioidentical molecules outside of the human body in a bioactive form. so that instead of being in the field of just research, we now have something that has a lifespan at that point of 1 year. And now, because of the science and how much more developed it is, it actually lasts 21 months. Now, that's a game changer, because suddenly you've gone from sitting next to a little machine and generating a molecule and drinking it on the spot because it doesn't last very long, to now being able to do something much more significant for the bigger population, as opposed to being part of a scientific research. So they did what was scientifically impossible, and they broke the mold. They created this whole new category of redox biology. It's interesting that our product, which is actually serves 33 different countries in the world, has no category. And it's fascinating to watch how each company handles it, because it's not a food. It's not technically a nutrition, because there's no actual materials left in the product. So it's not like taking capsules and being able to break them apart and analyze what's in them. This is science, this is chemistry, this is signaling, this is electrical communication. And in some places they categorize it as a water because they don't know what to do with it. But we are unique. We have created this whole new category, and still to this point, we are the only company that has managed to challenge this scientific impossibility and actually stabilize it. If you'd like to know more about the incredible story and the pivot point behind it, which we will talk a bit about that, and I'll ask Lynn to kind of fill that in as we finish off. Amazing Molecules and the ASEA Genesis is an incredible story. So if the body is making it, what's the body making it with? Well, the body's making it with the fluid of life, which is saline. If you think about this, if you go into a hospital, unfortunately, you'll probably be given a saline drip, right? If you're dehydrated, you're going to get a saline drip, because remember, electricity moves best through water. So we have to be hydrated if we want to function as a human being. If you've ever had a fuzzy day when you really can't think too well, you may well be dehydrated, and just the electrical processing is going to slow down. So hydration makes a big difference. But in the cells, that saline is broken apart by the mitochondria and that ATP. And it takes the sodium and the chloride and breaks it open into the hydrogen and oxygen. And we end up with these 4 molecules that are reorganized to be redox signals. We do the same thing. We have to make it with an identical solution, exactly the same as in the human body. And so that's often why people are very misled by both labeling and both opinion on Google, which is not a search engine. Certainly, well, let's put it this way, it's a search engine, but it's not a research engine. But a lot of people just think it's salt water. Now, we start with the same components as the body does, and we transform it in a proprietary and patented technology that takes us now, instead of 3.5 days, our science has accelerated so much, we can actually complete this in a single day. And this is where the magic takes place. And we are moving that saline from stage through stage, putting different electrical frequencies through it, breaking the bonds of it, reorganizing it. And then with the magic of being able to measure it, actually once it gets to a specific activity, just locking it off and kind of suspending it. So we have all these amazing trillions of redox molecules suspended in a saline solution. Now, for those of you who are saying to yourself, well, saline is sodium, it's salt and water, there's very, very little salt left by the time we've gone through this. Salt is there just to facilitate voltage and amperage. But by the time we complete it, if you drink about 4 ounces a day, you're going to consume only 125 milligrams of sodium, which is no more than about a slice of toast. So it is perfect for everybody, even if you're on a sodium restricted diet. This is an FDA registered facility in Utah, and this is where the world's supply is made, because we have so many patents and proprietary technology behind this processing, which cannot be reverse engineered. And so it is protected incredibly carefully, and they make it from there, and it goes from here to 19 different distribution centers around the world, and from there direct to everybody's homes. So this is where my product comes from. This is where Lynn's product comes from. And if you choose to consider and realize the importance of rebuilding these innate signals so that you can slow down that aging process, can ward off the increase in damage and oxidation as you get older, then this would be where your product would come from as well. How do I know that this is not just salt and water? Because the label will actually just say sodium chloride and water. Again, remember, we're not really a fit for the supplement industry, and so supplement industry labeling in the United States require those ingredients. But we know because our product is manufactured to the same standards of manufacturing as drug manufacturing. So every fourth batch is batch tested independently by these laboratories who verify that what you and I are buying is redox signaling molecules. And so we know that we're buying and we're getting what we're buying. And we also have an amazing relationship with both the Spanish centers and the German centers, because before we even came along, they have been a research facility center. They're doing their own research into the importance of redox. And they're taking our product and doing what will become published studies on the importance of it. And they're going to be showing us the power of this technology for future products, which is really exciting. Why would it be important to rebuild your signals? Well, because we know that scientifically, they've proven that our redox production, which is in an abundance when we're young, which is why everybody looks amazing when they're young, why they have boundless amounts of energy, why they recover quickly, why if they fall over, they don't break a bone like somebody in their 60s, 70s, or 80s might do. And they are much less likely to have disease. Well, from the age of 15, we get this inbuilt arc of aging that begins to happen. We lose these molecules at 1% per year. That's 10% per decade. Plus, the older we are, the less efficient those signals that we've got are at keeping us healthy. So the notion is, if we are going to lose them at 1% per year, and with it becomes this increase in time to take to recover, in the amount of endurance we have in our life, being sharp and mentally acute, warding off the wrinkles on the outside because we're actually changing the speed at which we wrinkle on the inside. Wouldn't it be amazing to be able to turn the clock back? So what we see is that this changes, this ability shifts out with time. And because of that, we get increased age and illness. Now, redox does some really important things in this process of keeping us healthy. It makes sure that the gene signaling, the messages that build the DNA of you and me, are super accurate. Right now, if you were going to tell me, as I was on a call with someone today who said, well, you know, there's this history that runs through my family. My grandfather had this, you know, my granddad had this, my great-grandfather, my father, my uncle, my cousins have got it. That's a genetic signal that's not working correctly. So we need those to be very secure. Redox signaling protects the natural lifespan of a cell. That might be very short for the eyes or the stomach in a matter of days, but it can be a long period of, 6 to 7 years in the bone. So we want our cells to live their full life and live in a healthy manner throughout that before they're replaced. We help to repair quickly. So if you're cut or injured, the cells are going to detect and say, here it is, this is where we need to get in and do the repair and the replacement. And we also want to make sure that if cells have started to go a little awry and not do the things that they should do and have conversations that are causing havoc, maybe in our lungs or in our heart or in our stomach, we want that to stop. We want the body to recognize when to eliminate that and replace with a healthy cell. And probably the most important thing that people have been tuned into in the last 2 years is this adaptive response, our innate immune signaling system, which is the one that's on high alert. It's the one that can pick up and detect when we're near a virus, a bacteria, environmental pollutions, toxins, molds, bacteria, anything that can cause damage to us and provide itself with a defense mechanism. So if you know people that are constantly picking up viruses and bacteria, it means that this system is not working at its full efficiency to protect you. ASEA actually does its own clinical research, and one of the things that we know is that we have an 800% improvement in the activity of the glutathione antioxidant. Glutathione and superoxide dismutases, these are the master antioxidants. Now, if you're consuming antioxidants in supplements, know that they're nowhere near as powerful as the ones we're meant to be producing 24/7. And so we want these just to be highly efficient. In fact, when we have low glutathione levels, we know that 82 known diseases are tied to that challenge. And the older we are, the less glutathione we have, and the older and sicker we are, the less we have. So it kind of makes sense that we want that to be as efficient as possible. It protects the oxidization of LDL and DNA, and we also, as we said, it affects genetic signaling. And one of our double-blind placebo studies showed we had a uniform 20 to 31% improvement in 100% of the test subjects who were consuming the ASEA REDOX. Now, that study was an 8-week double-blind placebo study. Fascinatingly enough, they took 35-year-olds who thought they were healthy, but when they tested their genetic function with blood analysis, it actually was already turning off. They took 8 ounces of ASEA for 8 weeks, and 100% of them had these genetic shifts. Fascinating also was that the placebo, our pure saline that we start with before it becomes the redox, was the placebo, and there was a 0% response to that. Excuse me. So these are the 5 areas that showed uniform improvements: healthy immune response, healthy inflammatory response, cardiovascular health with bone elasticity, improving gut health and digestive enzyme production, as well as hormone balance and modulating vitality. I want to show you that although that's 5 genes, as I said at the very beginning, these are the master molecules that turn on and off switches and then create this cascade effect across the body. So here's the example of the cascade of improving your inflammatory signaling pathway. If you take a look at the things that are in blue, those are the things that will be good and strong if those pathways are good and strong. So if you're having challenges with any of those things, then it would be important to make sure that you can upregulate and really get those signals to be very clear. And so you would feel better as a result of it. So how much should we consume? Well, it's a matter of demand and supply. What's the demand that your body has for additional redox? What would be the benefits? Well, some of those things are going to be: how old are you? What's your lifestyle like? What's your genetics like? Are you coming to the table with some kind of a challenge? Do you already have achy knees that creak and hurt? Do you struggle to breathe and run and exercise? Have you got a heart that's not necessarily as regular as it should be? You know, are you noticing that you've got fuzzy thinking and you really can't remember where you left your keys? Any of those things are signs that you come to the table with excess demand that needs a better supply. And so this is the tricky point. We all have a unique pathway, and the person that invited you to the call is going to help you actually benchmark and work your way to find what is the perfect amount for you. We often think of this as the sleep number bed, right? We've each got a different number that we find it can vary between just keeping us feeling okay or feeling amazing and really helping to achieve a better level of health. What we can tell you is that if you consume 4 ounces a day for 1 week, about 10 to 15% of people will notice something that makes a change. We will also say that even if you can't feel a change, we know from clinical studies that it's changing the blood serum markers in 100% of us the moment we drink it. So in other words, once we start consuming, it's already going to work. But you know, what is that going to do? Well, your body's going to take its time to reveal to you where it's using it. 4 ounces a day for a month, 50% of people are feeling pretty good with where they're going to. But the biggest pitch comes at this 3-month point. We find that 90% of people are really excited about the changes. It doesn't mean they haven't seen things on the way, but as we change out more blood cells, and that's kind of 75% at the 3-month point, we're going to see that we're replacing with a healthier cell. And so we've got the potential for the body to really reveal all sorts of amazing things that we may not realize that we've lost. If you're at the end of that first week and you're a little impatient, we always suggest that you go to the 8 ounces a day for certainly the first month. Maybe you might need to be one of those who needs a bigger demand and supply. But the first month is definitely also a really great push to saturate the cells, build up the number of signals, and allow the body to do its biggest work quicker if you're kind of impatient. We have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you could drink all of that and still get your money back. That's the wonderful part. Lynn mentioned also athletics. What we see is we have multiple professional athletes using this product. We have Olympic gold medalists and track and silver medalists. Why? Well, because studies show that when they consume this product, they get as much as a 29% increase in endurance and performance. I would flip that back and say, there's no way at the age of close to 70 that I'm going to be an Olympic gold medalist. I don't think I even ever was interested in being one in the first place, even though I danced professionally. But the point being is, what does that mean for you and I? Well, it means that if it can give them 29% longer time to be able to run and a much more steady endurance, and then they can recover quicker from all of that work, what is that going to do for our life? Well, again, same deal. Provides us with more endurance, more energy left over to do more things in our life, and not notice that effort that we might be putting in, that maybe currently if we go out and exercise, you might find yourself sitting around for 2 or 3 days before you could feel better and you're not hurting as a result of it. But sharper mental acuity is also important to an athlete. We can do with that as well, right? This is command central. We need this to be very super sharp for us in our lives if we want to live to the end of our time in full modes, not just trailing off. Do pay attention, if you're interested in that, go and have a look at the athletic field and see what they're doing with it. I want to talk about the Renew 28. This is actually the topical version of the liquid. And this is the piece that really kind of was what drew me into looking at the product technology. We have a unique way. It's designed for the skin, and you'll see that those are the studies from Dermatest. Why do we all love it on our skin? Because it does combat aging, right? It combats those wrinkles on the outside while we drink and combat the wrinkles on the inside. But we get as much as a 16% increase in skin cell renewal. In other words, you're going to look younger the longer you use it. It also combats the smoothness, the wrinkles, the elasticity, and blood flow, all from 4 things that has literally nothing that isn't designed to be on us or in us. No chemicals that are, untoward or have weird names that would suggest that we shouldn't be using them. But how did I test it? I tested it not simply for the skin piece, but if you've got something that hurts, one of the ways that we would use it is to rate that level of discomfort. If it's your back or your knees or your neck or something that's just not moving as freely as it should do, rate that level from 1 to 10, and then take the gel, shake it up, because it is what we drink and it kind of separates out a little bit from the clay. We have the minimal amount of clay in there to be able to suspend the liquid so that we can put it on the skin. And when you've rated your level of discomfort, take a good amount and apply it to the area that's hurting. You'll see it's totally clear. Unlike a lot of things, this is actually already signaling. Remember, these are master molecules that communicate. And the moment it touches us, because we're organic, it's opening up that spark and it's beginning to do its work. But try it 3 times in 5 minutes, wait 5 minutes and come back and check it out again. Make sure that you kind of benchmark, if you've got sore knees, see how well you can bend, where the point is that it hurts too much. Maybe take photos. If you've got fingers that won't close or are very stiff, take a photo and just benchmark and compare the before and after. I took this into my office, and as people came in, I would say to them, I'm trying out something that's new. Would you give me some feedback? And we did exactly this 3 times in 5 minutes. And I found it fascinating. It didn't matter whether it was hip discomfort because we were about to replace a hip, or whether it was congested sinuses that were really uncomfortable, whether it was a severe headache where they might normally have been doing medication, broken toes, bruises. It did not matter. Why did it not matter what the problem was? Well, because the one thing that's in common is everything involves a cell. And what we're doing here is putting a lot of the redox right where there's a communication system that's broken down and kind of kick-starting the ability for the body to hear where the problem is and go find it and start to recover what it was doing. I think you'll probably be really surprised at the outcomes. And if you're curious, why don't you go find 10 people and put it on 10 people and get their feedback while you're using your product on yourself. Here's some of the examples of the 28-day clinical studies. You can see those changes in elasticity and wrinkles and fine lines. And in the top right there, very much the irritation that's there from oxidation. Again, being able to calm that down and help the body get on top of that. We have a number of products, fortunately not too many. I love that about this company. The blue and the white is the pure redox. We're adding a supply on the inside, rebuilding, or we're putting it on the outside where we need it. And we give ourselves the cellular materials. Remember, I said that the food is the materials to help build the cell. And synergistically with these organic, whole food, non-GMO products, and with the exception of omega, which comes from fish, they are all vegan. And so these are a beautiful synergy of being able to give the fuel, the materials to burn, and the redox with just the labor to make it happen and deliver this into the cell and really help us provide the energy and the fuel to create brilliant cells and much more life and vitality. Now, the three packages that we have in the red, blue, and the yellow are the latest fields of looking how do we take the science of redox, which shows us when we use certain botanicals and nutraceuticals, this is a lock and key where it locks into a cell and produces a very specific and intentional redox reaction. The yellow is energy. This is fueling a better sustained energy in the cell, not a high peak up and down. The blue is for mood. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling under the weather and not necessarily as happy as you would like to feel, or that you just feel life is a little too much to deal with and the anxiety goes up, this is a beautiful product for helping bring down the fuzziness and the chaos in life in our mind and just really settle us in beautiful clarity. It's also neuroprotective for the long haul, not just in the short term. And the red one is mind. And this was a beautiful one for really improving how we can focus and have better concentration and memory. And again, also works cumulatively. Each of those packages is a little tiny packet. You can just pour them into water, drink them. You can combine them, take them singly. You can add them to smoothies. They're really adaptable and they're beautiful. I love the red and the yellow first thing in the morning as a hot drink instead of coffee. It just allows the brain to be alert and just steady energy. This is our skincare system, also powered by redox reactions and on the basis of some beautiful published studies in the Journal of Antioxidants about redox and aging. I want to just show you and close up here on what we think of as cellular decline, right? The visible example of increased aging on the inside, really projecting itself on the outside. This is Rosie, and you can see how much inflammation is in her face at the age of 9, what we think of as 91. But I want to show you that when we actually rebuild these signals, we are truly interrupting the breakdown of aging, and we're beginning to turn things around, and we're going to refuel and supply the body with a better way to defend itself and counter what's already gone on, to reset the clock. I truly don't know of any single product that can take somebody at 84 and actually make them at least 10 years younger by